Hi there, welcome to today's episode of Stand Up. It's Thursday, I'll be hosting a hangout tonight at 8 p.m. I hope to see you there. On today's show, you'll get to hear my conversation with the brilliant and righteous and amazingly talented and accomplished Celeste Headlee. She joins me today. We had a great conversation. We were live yesterday. If you want to watch it, you can on YouTube or Substack. You want to jump right to it, you can listen to that conversation. It starts at 33 minutes. But, of course, I've got your headlines and your clips, or what I call the shit show. So let's get started, jump right into it. Let's start with this fiasco of a legal disaster for the administration, for the Department of Justice, for the reputation of the current Attorney General. The grand jury yesterday that apparently we found out, the grand jury that charged the former FBI Director James Comey, apparently they never saw the version of the indictment that interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan had signed and that was delivered to the judge. The government acknowledged this yesterday in an extraordinary concession that could apparently just destroy the case, nullify the whole indictment. Mentioned this yesterday, but shocking that a real estate lawyer doesn't know how to prosecute a criminal case, or specifically that one of the FBI director, former FBI director, James Comey, or even more importantly, a very, very high-profile criminal case against the former top cop of the United States. I can't believe that Lindsay Halligan screwed this up. I can't believe that the administration, the Department of Justice, appointed somebody who wasn't qualified for the job, and then it blew up in their face. In their face! Sorry, went a little Chappelle on you. So we'll keep our eyes on that stupid case that never should have been brought, clearly. In other news, the New York Times is leading with a story about NVIDIA, this chip-making company, and their most recent quarterly profits, which was apparently $31 billion, almost $40 billion for the quarter, up 65% from a year ago and 245% from the year before that. NVIDIA, which has become the world's most valuable publicly traded company by dominating the market for computer chips used in artificial intelligence projects, announced these earnings yesterday afternoon. Its business still rapidly growing. And should these quarterly profits be enough to calm the nerves of investors on Wall Street, where there have been increasing concerns that the AI craze is a bubble? I don't know. Everything I'm hearing is that that's the case. The company's financial performance has been considered something of a bellwether for the rest of the tech industry, which is investing trillions of dollars in AI data centers. NVIDIA controls about 90% of the market for AI chips. Their chief executive, Jason Huang, also has become very close with our chief executive and fondling father. The administration has even used the company's chips as a tool in trade and peace talks. So there you have it. In other economic news, Shart Vader's sweeping tariffs took a toll on trade in August. New data shows imports of goods and services dropped 5.1% from the month prior. The Fed is now divided over how to quickly lower interest rates, according to notes from last month's meeting. The December rate cut is now in doubt, and the administration is hiding the October job numbers. I wonder why. Why would they be doing that? I'm sure it's just they were so good that they don't want everybody to know. But yeah, the Department of Labor just is not reporting job numbers anymore, and that's not a huge story every day. In other news, Scammy Davis Jr. is expected to sign a bill demanding that the Justice Department release its files on the Epstein case. But there are all kinds of loopholes that could mean that not all the files may be released. I'll have some audio coming up on that. And Uncle Scam's advisors have also recommended that FEMA be reformed but preserved, rejecting his suggestion that they dissolve it. And finally, one more story coming out of the administration and Dopey McGropey. They have announced that they're proposed to weaken the Endangered Species Act. Because why not? Why not move to weaken the Endangered Species Act? 4 proposed rules could make it easier to drill for oil or harvest timber in areas where endangered species live. So, yeah, fantastic. What else do I have for you? In Ukraine, an American delegation has arrived on Wednesday to discuss efforts to end the wars. American efforts to revive peace negotiations appeared to gain some momentum. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll was joined by Army Chief of Staff General Randy George and other top Army officials. Colonel Dave Butler said in a statement, hours after Ukrainian police said at least 25 people were killed in heavy overnight Russian missile and drone attacks. Also, there is a scandal brewing around their leader. It is President Volodymyr Zelensky, of course. Over the past 2 weeks, anti-corruption investigators have slowly unfurled details on an investigation that poses a very significant threat to his power. The first time since Russia's invasion in 2022. Members of the president's inner circle are accused of siphoning off and laundering $100 million from the state-owned nuclear power company. An anti-Zelensky political coalition is starting to coalesce, threatening his control over his party. So that's a pretty big development there. In the Middle East, Israel launched an airstrike on a densely populated Palestinian refugee camp. Because, why the fuck not? Jesus Christ. Southern Lebanon, this camp is where it is, and killed 13 people, wounding several others, according to Lebanese officials. One of the deadliest Israeli strikes in Lebanon since the ceasefire with Hezbollah went into effect about a year ago, ending a short but devastating war against the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah. So that's pretty terrible. That's one count, 13 people. I've seen much higher counts being reported by other news outlets as well, including the New York Times said at least 25 people were killed in Gaza. Wait, I'm sorry. That was a different attack. Israeli strikes killed at least 25 people in Gaza. The Israeli military said the strikes were a response to Palestinian militants firing on its forces. So it continues to be horrific violence there in the region. Also, just read this could be a harsh flu season here in the U.S. This flu virus, causing more severe symptoms than last year's. Get your flu shots. It's not too late. Seems to be spreading more rapidly and earlier than usual. Go get your shot. Come on now. Also, a New York Times poll has found that 60% of immigrants support Trump's border efforts, but fewer support his raids, which are causing non-citizens to curtail their lives. So I thought that was interesting. A former FBI agent in training sued the FBI, claiming he was illegally fired for displaying a pride flag on his desk. I hope he wins. New research is pointing to the fact that home insurance prices have spiked as well, as global reinsurance companies are experiencing a climate epiphany. I thought that was a pretty interesting report worth mentioning, especially for people in places like Louisiana and other climate, weather-prone places. Weather-prone places. Everybody has weather. You know what I mean. New research shared with New York Times estimates the extent to which rising home insurance premiums driven by higher climate change are cascading into the broader real estate market and eating into home values and the most disaster-prone areas. That's what I meant, disaster-prone. Yeah, there, that cleared it up. Also, the governor of Texas, he is a terrible guy, Greg Abbott. He has now targeted the nation's largest Muslim advocacy and civil rights group. I'm familiar with them. I used to talk to their reps back on the old show, the Council on American Islamic Relations. He's declared that they're a foreign terrorist organization, saying they'll move to prohibit the organization from acquiring land in Texas and authorize the state attorney general to sue to shut them down in Texas. I don't think there's any evidence that CAIR is a foreign terrorist organization, but by all means, present the evidence and let us decide. And in a heartbreaking report from ProPublica, who continues to do great reporting, they found multiple cases of women with underlying health conditions who died when they couldn't access abortions. One woman, Tierra Walker, a 37-year-old mother, was told by doctors there was no emergency for her preeclampsia before her preeclampsia killed her. So it's just absolutely horrible, and I'm so glad that they did this investigation, as heartbreaking as it is. But these are the kinds of things that we absolutely need to know, and I'm glad that there are good journalists doing good work to help us see the consequences of these inhumane, awful human rights and health rights policies. All right, well, those are the headlines I've gathered for you. Coming up, I've got your clips. Before that, I want to highlight and offer some help to one of our longtime listeners who I've talked to a lot of times, have gotten to know, and he's been a big supporter of mine over the years. One of the most interesting things about this podcast, of course, is the community that we've created and how so many of us have become friends and come together to support each other through the highs and the lows and difficult times and similar challenges that we faced individually or together. The vast majority of people who listen to the show, of course, I don't think are active members of the community. They come for the podcast. They don't come necessarily for the Hangouts or the Discord platform or to necessarily attend any of our live events that we've hosted. But many of them are still known to me and a few others, and that's the case with my friend Troy Feltus, who is a great guy. He's been to a couple of the Hangouts. Some of you know who he is, but he's a longtime listener, really smart, thoughtful guy who I've communicated with several times over the years. And last week, Troy and his wife got the worst news, tragic news, that they found out that their son, Colin, who was 16 years old, was killed in a car accident. They also have an amazing young daughter, Delaney, who lost her older brother. And so this is the worst news any person or parent could, of course, get. Colin was, by all accounts, a really great kid. They sat down with a local news reporter and did a story about him and talked about him and shared pictures and heard from many of his friends, and it's heartbreaking, obviously. It's been about a month since their tragic loss, and they're only, of course, now just starting to come to terms with the reality of it. So I reached out to Troy a couple of days ago. We had a long conversation. It was really nice. Troy's a great guy and a great dad and husband. And the main reason I'm telling you about this is because he had a favor to ask of our community, which is simply if anybody in the stand-up community can help his family set up a scholarship for their son Colin's memory, they'd be greatly appreciative. Apparently, there are quite a bit of challenges with this kind of thing, setting up a scholarship. If you have any experience with this or know anything about it, please contact me at standupwithpete@gmail.com. I'll set you up, connect you with Troy and his wife, Christy. standupwithpete@gmail.com. Troy, like I said, is a veteran, and he is a really smart, passionate guy who I've gotten to know a bit over the years. He's been very supportive of me, and he asked if anybody can also help them gain access to his son's phone and some of the past text messages. They're struggling with that as well. If you know anything about that, they'd really appreciate it. Also, they set up a GoFundMe to fund this scholarship they'd like to set up if you want to donate anything to that. I'll include all of the information that I'm sharing here with you in links in today's show notes and subscriber email. And of course, if you've suffered a similar tragedy and you want to contact Troy and connect with him, show support in any way, I'm sure he and his family would appreciate it. We're thinking of you, Troy, Christy, Delaney, and I hope that some folks here in our community can find ways to help you. And if you are going through something and there's something that we can do to help, please reach out in all of the different ways on the Discord platform. Join us at our happy hour hangouts, which you do almost every Thursday at 8 p.m. and sometimes twice a week. And you can always email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right. Thank you, Troy, Delaney, and Christy, and talk to you soon. Now on to the clip show. Here are the clips that I've got for you today. Let's start with some fun observations from comedian Trey Crowder, who I've grabbed another car rant from. We always love when Trey does these. I always love to share them when I see him. Here it is.
Hey, y'all, for months now, the Republicans have been hemming and hawing about the release of the Epstein files, which, if you ask me, shielding diddlers from justice is not something you should need to either hem or haw about. But hey, either way, after months of deflection and wheel spinning, they've had a lightning fast and totally not suspicious change of heart this week. And in under 36 hours, both the House and the Senate have voted to release the files. And now the fact that they're all in lockstep on this all of a sudden out of nowhere has people feeling suspicious and speculating wildly. Hi, it's me. I'm people. I'm doing those things. First of all, the absolute shamelessness of Mike Johnson and them spending weeks being like, listen, we're not going to act rashly here. There are standards that need to be met. The Democrats are blowing this out of proportion. We're not going to cave to them and just release these files. And then his assistant slides him a note that says Trump just tweeted we should release the files. He's like, and we value transparency and justice above all else. And that's why we're demanding that these files be released immediately. Thank you. And you're just like, wait, what? You were literally just saying the opposite of that. You don't. Wow. Well, you don't feel even a little bit like a slimy piece of shit right now? Because you really should. But the bigger question is, like, why did Trump flip all of a sudden, right? It feels like there has to be some kind of plan. I think most people think it's one of two things. One, he says to release the files now because he knows they finished the process of scrubbing them, right? It's been rumored for a while now, and Epstein's brother himself said he heard the FBI was instructed to remove anything implicating Trump or high-level Republicans. And look, I wouldn't put that past them, but if they do that, there's going to be plenty of living witnesses that could dispute that version of events, and I don't know if they can defenestrate all those people. But also, I don't know about y'all, but I wouldn't trust Kash Patel to scrub a goddamn saucepan clean. So, like, that plan feels risky to me. Right? And then the second theory is that Trump says to release them now because he knows that they still won't be for whatever reason. I remember a couple weeks ago when Trump was like, I declare an investigation. Well, now he can say, yeah, we'd love to release those files, but turns out they're for that investigation. So hands are kind of tied, right? I've seen some legal experts say if you read this bill, it was written in a pretty airtight way that should keep them from exploiting those types of loopholes like that easily. And that sounds great, but like, I don't know how much of a shit they're going to give. Like if Team Trump says, we're not releasing the files for this reason, and this bill's authors go, actually, we knew you'd say that. So we specifically wrote into the bill that you can't use that reason. So you're still going to need to release them. Huh. Well, shut up, nerd. Still not doing it. Then what happens? Like, who's going to force the DOJ to comply here? Itself? You know, like, I don't know what's ultimately going to happen here. I just have a hard time believing it's going to be anything good. If it was going to be good, the Republicans wouldn't be doing it. That's not how they or things that are good work, right? This much I know. What I also know about them is that they're dumb and bad at things. So if they do have some shadowy, nefarious plan here, the odds are good that they'll probably screw it up at least a little bit. And so between that and the fact that this clearly isn't going to just go away anytime soon, I don't know, maybe the actual God's honest truth is still in the cards here, ultimately. Hopefully. Maybe. I don't know. Love y'all.
Yeah, there you go. Trey Crowder, well done, as always. And speaking of well done, as always, let's go to Jessica Tarlov at the Fox on the panel over at, what is it, The Five. That's right. She makes a very good point about Ghislaine Maxwell, something I like to ask everybody who is still supporting Trump, even though we have learned so much more regarding the Epstein files. It's about, why did she get moved? You know what Jesse Waters has to say? Nothing. And then he moves on. Because it's the only thing he can say. There's nothing to say. Here it is.
So why do you think Ghislaine Maxwell is in a minimum security prison and is being waited on basically hand and foot?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Well, that's
but
beautiful.
I do know this,
I love
Jessica.
that you don't know and
you
you
will
don't
find
care
out
it's inconvenient
that the
for
FBI
you.
will be embarrassed because they investigated a lot of these allegations and didn't do anything about it. The DOJ will be embarrassed because they were the ones that cut the sweetheart deal. J.P. Morgan, all the bankers will be embarrassed.
Yeah, I'd love
a lot of Democrats and a lot of and the royal family will be embarrassed.
Well,
so
they definitely already are.
I think Donald Trump is probably saying there's going to be a lot of innuendo out there. You really want to see it? You really want to see it? Are you sure? Okay, here it is.
All right. There you go. Guy's such an unparalleled idiot. I don't know. I honestly don't know how he got to where he is. I don't get it. All right, here's Haley Robeson. She's one of the Epstein survivors, and she's great because she's very angry and indignant and strong and smart and unfortunately somehow a Republican, but regardless, I think she even supported Trump. Here she is. She's pissed at Trump. She's pissed especially at Speaker of the House and Christian nationalist Mike Johnson, who's, by the way, his daughter had a purity ball that we just found out about, or maybe we always knew, but that's where she has to promise herself to him until she meets another man and wears a ring, and she can't have sex, and it's really fucking extreme and gross. Anyway, here's Haley Robeson.
So, Haley, you have been fighting for a long time to even get to this point, right? Now that the legislation is officially moving forward, what do you say to the president?
I say that the flip-flop and the back and forth has been nothing short of nauseating and embarrassing. I think that you had 2024 campaigned on this, so it's very overdue for the survivors. I think that if you would like to clear your name once and for all, and let's put the past behind us so we can all move forward in a positive direction and finally get the justice and clarity that we deserve, I suggest that we follow through with our promises. We follow through with what we have said we were going to do, because at the end of the day, we only have integrity and we only have our word. So I would like to see him sign this, and let's get through it.
You're a Republican. You've spoken about that. I wonder what your reaction is to Speaker Johnson saying that this vote was a political show vote by the Democrats.
Well, I was present in the room when they were doing the votes, as well as all the survivors. And I can say the only theatrics I saw was from him. I think some of his comments were on that fine line. This is not a hoax. There is no theater coming from us or the survivors on our end. I'm appalled by him in general, and I've lost a lot of respect by him. Just the back and forth with Adelita Grijalva. You will never convince me.
She was a deciding vote at the time for the petition. That's why you said that. Okay.
Yes, and you will never convince me that shutting down the government for 50 days, and in those 50 days was when we needed them the most. And in those 50 days, we don't know what happened. We just know that you wouldn't swear in Adelita Grijalva, and I'm sure there was more pressing issues and policies that came to light in that decision-making. But this has been an issue that has been very important to the American people and something that he campaigned on. And when you have a policy or procedures that need to be done for the American people, I feel it's in America's best interest and the people's best interest if you follow through and get things done instead of just closing off. Surely they are the adults. Surely they can figure it out.
Yeah. Well said. All right, let me move on in the shit show clip show to Eric Swalwell, congressman on the Oversight Hearing Committee. He is doing a little bit of wish forecasting here, and I'm here for it.
And Kristi Noem and Tom Homan, you should familiarize yourself with the four corners of this room. Kristi Noem and Tom Homan, get to know that witness chair. You're going to be parked in it for a long time. You're going to have a lot of questions under oath with the subpoena power. And I hope what you're doing is clean and can withstand the scrutiny that everyone on this side of the aisle is going to bring. You think we won't do it. You think you're invincible. You're wrong. Accountability is coming. You've got about a year, and I yield back.
Yeah, good stuff. You know, usually when Republicans are in charge, just realize this, they're always creating and conflating all kinds of manufactured controversy and having hearings and dragging people up to testify under oath about shit they did or said or did or didn't say. They're not doing that right now. No Fast and Furious, no Benghazis. Why not? Maybe because they can't find anything. I don't know. But that is going to be a lot different when Democrats take over next year, which I really hope they do. We have to work really hard to make sure that happens. But if Democrats are in charge, you're going to see a lot of investigations and maybe an impeachment or 10. All right. Here's a montage of a whole bunch of people saying we got to get the Epstein files out, from J.D. Vance to Kash Patel to more.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI. That's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
We have flight logs. We have information, names that will come out.
Everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
Why do they want to make this Jeffrey Epstein story go away so bad? That Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go.
All of those people then got into office and hit it. That's the whole thing. There are no consequences when you're on the radio, when you're not elected. And then you get elected, and then you got to do what you said you're going to do. And it shouldn't be that hard. But for some reason, it's been real hard. All right, here's Congressman Ro Khanna, who has made a real name for himself in leading this discharge petition along with Republican Thomas Massie. Here he is yesterday at a little press conference.
The question, though, is whether all the files will be released. I am concerned because Pam Bondi in the past said there's nothing more to release. Now suddenly she's saying, well, we're going to follow the law and there's more to release. So obviously there was a contradiction. But I do believe that they will ultimately release the files because we have upped the stakes. Because my bill with Congressman Massie has passed, now it is a criminal offense for any career official at the Justice Department or the FBI not to release these files. It's a contempt of Congress. So it's no longer, we just don't feel like doing it. Now you're violating federal law, and that's something very serious.
All right. Yeah, Ro Khanna. There you go. And while we're talking to him, he weighed in on another issue, this secret war, or not so secret war, the potential for war in Venezuela.
We need more people who are against foreign wars, against endless wars. I agree with Congressman Massey. I mean, why are we getting into a war possibly in Venezuela? Why are we spending money aligned with Saudi Arabia and their defense needs when we could be spending that money here at home, creating jobs here at home? There is an anti-war coalition that is sick of these foreign wars and wants us to support America. And by the way, President Trump ran on that. He ran on America first, and I wish he was listening more to people in his own coalition on this.
All right. Yeah. Well done. We'll see what happens there. Let's go back to Fox News The 5, where Jessica Tarlov makes the comment about the gerrymandering egg on the face Republican strategy. On the face!
And I know it's a really fun conversation, but the Democratic Party, at least, is not focused on what's going to happen 2-3 years from now. They're looking at how the map has just opened up for Democrats. So this seat, which you said was a Trump plus 22, Cook Political Report shifted it from solid R to lean R. The Republicans have had to put in hundreds of thousands of dollars in late breaking cash because they think that this could be a real race. And Democrats have overperformed in special elections by an average of 15 points all through 2025. The Marist poll from today, I get it. It's an outlier with Democrats up 14 points on the generic ballot. But even if that's 8-9 points, that's how you say blue tsunami coming your way. And then this backfiring with the gerrymandering is a massive deal. So Donald Trump asks Greg Abbott to cheat for him. They try. They fail. A Trump-appointed judge even helped with that. So now it looks like Republicans aren't going to net any seats. Indiana's running away from this as well. And the winner, Greasy Gav, with Prop 50, it looks like Democrats could end up with just an extra 3 seats. Kevin Kiley, a vulnerable Republican in California, unleashing. So angry because he's going to lose his seat, all because they tried to rig the system and then failed.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Good points. And moving on to another issue that a lot of us are paying attention to, AI and the potential for an AI bubble and the potential for a bailout of the AI companies. Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is already warning we're not going to do that. Here it is.
They have not yet proven. Just this morning, the Wall Street Journal reported a significant drop in the U.S. stock market with the headline AI bubble fears hit stocks. Now, this also contrasts with what we've been hearing from the Trump administration, that the economy in general is thriving. And he's been saying that the economy is booming, but it's only 7 tech companies that are booming: Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta. And they're driving this growth in just one sector, AI. So the entire U.S. economy growth can be tracked down to 7 companies and their AI growth specifically. At least 40% of economic growth this year is attributed to these companies alone, and 80% of stock gains this year came from AI companies. But people are justifying these levels of investment because of the promises that the CEOs make that there will be a return on that investment. So for a company like OpenAI, their value is based on the expectation that they're going to figure out how to make a profit out of it. And they haven't. And so generating this increased human dependency that can be mined, because it's not subject to HIPAA. Is that correct, Dr. King?
Right, it's not subject to HIPAA.
It's not subject to HIPAA. So people's deepest fears, secrets, emotional content, relationships can all be mined for this empty promise that we're getting from these companies to turn a profit. And the reason I bring all of this up is because the exposure of this industry and this investment, I fear, has reached broad levels potentially of the American economy. When we're talking about 40% of stock growth in the United States being attributed to these companies in the AI sector alone, and that sector has not turned a profit, we're talking about a massive economic bubble. And when we've seen, depending on the exposure of that bubble, we could see 2008-style threats to economic stability. And that pressure is reflected on the extreme lengths that these companies are going to allow unethical human interactions with these chatbots. I say this because I want to say also on the record that should this bubble pop, and I say this for my colleagues here, should this bubble pop, my colleague from Massachusetts mentioned the level of AI lobbying that occurs here in Congress. Should this bubble pop, we should not be entertaining a bailout. We should not entertain a bailout of these corporations as healthcare is being denied to everyday Americans, as SNAP and food assistance is being denied to everyday Americans, precipitating some of the very mental crises that people are turning to AI chatbots to try to resolve in themselves. So I think it's very important that we get on the record and state that. And I'd like to thank the witnesses for offering their insight today. Thank you.
All right. Good stuff, important stuff. And that is a space we should all be watching. Finally, here, I got some more jokes for you. It's Stephen Colbert at The Late Show on CBS. I think this is 2 nights ago.
I feel good coming out here today. When it comes to Congress, it's increasingly rare that things happen. And today, something did. This afternoon, the House voted to release the Epstein files. That is the reaction of people who are not in the files. I'm guessing. In fact, it passed overwhelmingly 427 to 1. Wow, wait, hold on. Wait, to 1? Who was the one vote to keep them secret? Do we have a picture of the guy who voted against it? Wonder who that was. Who was that? I don't know. Of course, the vote doesn't mean the Epstein files will be released right away. The bill now has to go to the Senate, where it may be amended, and if it's passed there and amended, it would have to go back to the House, where it has to cross over a river, and under the bridge is a troll. And to get by the troll, you have to answer his riddle. What walks on 2 cankles in the morning, rides a golf cart in the afternoon, and is totally in the Epstein files? Thank you. Then again, it might be way simpler than that, because as of this taping, this is still happening? As of this taping, since the vote was so huge and overwhelming in the House, the Senate may vote on the Epstein files tonight. So, soon. I mean, tomorrow we might know everything he and his pervert buddies did, meaning it's Epstein rockin' Eve. Stay up for a ball drop you're going to want to miss. I agree. This is a dramatic legislative turnaround. And a huge loss for Trump. Make no mistake. For going on 4 months now, Trump and Speaker Mike Johnson fought the release of the Epstein files with every congressional tool they had. And keep in mind, Congress is loaded with some major tools. But when it looked like Republicans were defecting en masse and they were going to lose big, they were suddenly all in, like they always were. Right, Mike?
Republicans support maximum transparency. We always have. The President of the United States supports maximum transparency.
Yes, the President has always supported maximum transparency. A healthy diet of leafy greens and the understated androgynous sensuality of a flat-chested woman.
All right, there you go. I had to cut it off. I had a little issue there at the end. Sorry. That was great. All right, let's move on to my conversation with Celeste Headlee. She's the best. She's one of our favorites. She's a journalist. She's an author. She's a speaker, a musician, an award-winning everything. She's written 4 very good books. She's just turned in her 5th book, and she's also announced on the show today that she's taken a job in academia. She's going to a historically black college where our friend Dr. Jason Johnson works. It's Morgan State University in Maryland, and really excited for that news. We caught up yesterday, had a great conversation. Celeste is the best. That's all I can say. Follow her and support her on all the social media platforms and sites. You can watch this interview if you want. We were live on YouTube and Substack at Stand Up with Pete. Let's do it with one of our all-time faves, Celeste Headlee. One of your favorites, one of my favorites, with jazz hands today and a kindness t-shirt. It's Celeste Headlee, fresh off the road, fresh off turning in a new book that you've been working on for apparently a long time. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it. I should have asked you before I hit record, but you did post about it.
I am. Yeah. I mean, I've been working on it for 9 years. It's a book about my great-grandmother. It is very different than every other book I've ever written. And it has been, when I tell you this is the hardest thing I've ever done, I mean, by a mile. It is.
Because it's personal and you want to get it right, or?
No, yes, that's part of it. But to a certain extent, all of my books are personal. But it just, I'm writing a book about a black woman born in before the, during the end of the Civil War, and trying to find any scrap of evidence. We're just thousands of miles of travel, hour upon hour upon hour, scouring through archives and tracking down out of print books. And it's been a completely worthwhile trek. And I hope that my book convinces other people to engage in this kind of familial research, but it's not sunshine and roses.
Oh yeah, I bet. Looking forward to that. I mean, all your books are it's very different. I mean, you said it's nothing like any of my other books. Well, none of your books are like the other one. They're like vastly different subjects to a certain.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's mostly true.
I think I think that's the most impressive thing about your work is that it's all, a lot of people have a certain lane that they travel in, and it could be any of the 4 books that you've written for, right? That a person is an expert on, whether communication or race, or not too many people writing about doing nothing, but a lot of people stole from you. So,
yeah.
Hey, you started that genre. All right, maybe a Stoic did somewhere. But anyway, congratulations. Yeah. That's great that you turned it in. It must be a relief. I'm excited. When will we
It is a huge relief. It comes out next fall from Flatiron Books, which is the boutique imprint of Macmillan. We have a cover. This is the exciting point. It starts going into publication, and every few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, you get another version of it to look through again. By the time your book gets published, you've read it.
I'm not surprised, by the way.
Times.
Just a quick self-interested question on book publishing. I wonder if people would be interested or not. But it feels like anybody can self-publish a book. But to get a publishing house to publish your book and to make any money off it, you have probably had to have at least written a book before. But then sometimes I'm like, I see books, including some that get pitched to me, and I'm like, how did a publisher say yes to this book? And only because who would want to read it? I'm not saying it's not a good book, but a publisher pays for a book because they want to make money. And I'm like, this is such a weird idea. It's encouraging when I see it because I'm like, well, maybe somebody will like my idea. But the question is it really hard to get a book published these days, or is it really hard to make money getting a book published? That's my understanding. But it seems
both. They're separate things, right? But they're both true. I mean, I have no idea how difficult it is at maybe some of the small publishers, right? Some of the publishers will put out a very limited run of a book. They're assuming that you can sell at least a few hundred copies of it. At one of the big publishers, Viking, HarperCollins, Penguin, etc., Macmillan, that's more difficult, right? Because they're not going to put out a few hundred copies of the book. They're going to put out thousands, and they're going to come out hardback right away. And it is really difficult. So my book, Do Nothing, but a little while ago passed the 100,000 copies sold.
Wow.
And I think a fraction of 1% of authors ever sell more than 100,000 copies of a book. And there's something that, you get an advance, and I think somebody's going to tell me that I'm wrong, but the average advance right now is not a lot. I think it's somewhere like maybe 30,000, maybe 50,000 bucks. It's not a lot of money. And maybe that sounds like a lot of money to people, but we're talking about, if you get $30,000 advance and it takes you years to write a book, which most people it does, you have to divide that 30,000, which you don't get all at once, by the years it takes, right? So even with that low of a book advance, very few books ever earn out, meaning very few books ever earn enough in profits to ever pay back that book advance. So yeah, it's difficult. And I wouldn't want to be a publisher. I mean, can you imagine having that job of trying to guess what books people are going to care about. Like if you think about some of the books that really go big and they're not from celebrities, things like a book about introverts, who would have ever thought? Or that book about organizing. What's the name of the Marie Kondo?
Marie Kondo? That one worked.
Yeah.
That one worked on me.
Yeah, but who would have ever predicted that, right?
I predicted it.
Did you?
Yeah, I said if a very educated Japanese woman, which I think is redundant, don't they? They have pretty good education over there. Writes a book about organization. I think it'll do well, and I think it'll affect me. And I pitched it, but then she ended up writing it. I didn't even know who she was, so whatever.
Right. Yeah. Anyhow, it's a tough business. It's tough.
All right.
And, all those books that end up like by celebrities, very few of those even make money in the end because they'll sell a ton of copies in those first few weeks, like the politicians and stuff. And that's it. People don't go back 5 years later and pick up a copy of that book.
I just picked up Governor Sanford's book, actually. So you're wrong about that.
Mark Sanford, famously not of the Appalachian Trail, that one.
Well, did you hear the new salacious gossip about him?
Yes.
All right.
You're talking about Olivia? Yeah, let's not be salacious, but yes, I heard it.
We're not talking about Olivia Nuzzi, are we?
I hope not. God.
Somebody did write a good piece. My friend Colby Hall at Media wrote a good piece about the atmosphere that creates someone like her in terms of what media, how journalism
I read that.
Yeah?
Yeah, the journalistic elite and how it rots.
Well, just about how, and more importantly, and you could speak to this because you've lived through the whole transformation. I got on board and never was officially like a journalist, but like you've lived through it all and done it all in terms of journalism. When you started your career, things were a lot more traditional in terms of print and radio and television. And now at this point in your career, it's so much less about journalism and more about personality and media savvy and conflict and obviously clicks and algorithms and so on. And I think that he was just talking about now it's more about personality, hence Olivia Nuzzi's success versus, journalism that of someone, name any respected journalist throughout time.
I mean, I think that's always been the case. If you think back of journalists that are actually famous from prior generations, right? Most of them were pretty big personalities, right? That's what gonzo journalism is all about, right? I think there's a difference now in terms of what's tolerated, the level of incompetence that's tolerated. Olivia Nuzzi, in the end, is a terrible writer, and her reporting is not good.
Oh. How dare you?
Well, I won't go into all that stuff, but it's not good. And so, say what you will about some of the other big personalities we have, and you can say a lot about the egos that have been involved, but it was fact-checked, and it mattered, right? Now it's like as long as you can get clicks, which is what drives revenue, they don't care. But I don't think... Here's my glass half full moment. I think the public actually cares. Most of the public. I mean, look at the success of your show, right? You choose people who know what they're talking about and have come with receipts.
Niche, but like I would argue that my success is enough to sustain me alone, just barely, not a staff. And so the better example would be look at the success of so many other people who are much bigger, making way more money. They might even have a huge staff and what they are doing. And,
it's bad. You're talking about like a Joe Rogan.
I'm more talking about, I think I more might be talking about like the Pod Saves America guys that they're doing something similar, or the Bulwark people, they're doing something similar that I've been doing this for a long time, which is the only reason I have anything going on. And credibility and it matters. And obviously that's my currency, in terms of the guests that I have on, frankly, like yourself. Someone just wrote in the chat, Rachel, gosh, we're so lucky to get to watch Celeste Headlee live. What a world. But I read it as an even higher compliment. I read it as, gosh, we're so lucky to get to watch Celeste Headlee live.
Oh,
wow, when I read it as live, not live, it was really, really nice. We're so lucky to get to watch her live and do her work. Anyway, that was, your response to just the journalism final point.
Yeah, I think people do value edited, fact-checked, truth-based, verified information. I think they do. I also think that people do value good writing. We're not always reading it. Many of us are not actually reading an entire article.
Yeah, what is this reading?
There's lots of reasons for that. I'm going to give everyone a pass on this because our behavior is being changed for us.
Yeah.
But I think people do, in the majority, value those things. It just has become more difficult to make a living at it. And the celebrities are crowding out the space. And, the temptation to say stay in your lane is so strong. But I don't believe in staying in your lane. Like, I don't think I should be telling anybody to stay in your lane. But I do think that if you're going to make a living as an interviewer, you should probably study the craft. Like, we've talked about this before.
Yes.
Why are you bothering to make a living and suck up all the air in the room with an interview that's terrible? You're wasting everyone's time.
One thing you learn, a good interview tactic is to come with a lot of preparation, come with, in this case, my conversation with you, a lot of questions, but also be prepared to pivot and ask something else, which is what I'm about to do right now, because you just said our behavior is being changed for us. And I want you to elaborate on what you mean by that.
Well, it's no surprise that since the aughts, that the technology that not only are we using in our personal life, but has been required in our professional lives for most people, changes our behavior. Here's the thing that I don't think people truly appreciate, which is that your beliefs and your identity are about the things you repeat. The thoughts that you have are just thoughts. They're not true. Right? They're just thoughts. Emotions are just emotions. But when they're repeated, that's when they become part of who you are. That's why, surprising me at least, self-affirmations and self-talk is so powerful. Like Celeste, as of 1998, would have been like, that's a bunch of hooey. Affirmations, why don't you just use crystals? And
you did use the word hooey a lot back in 98. I know that. You would use it on air.
But it's in fact the case that you can change your brain just through what you say out loud and what you say to yourself. And so when I talk about our behavior being changed for us, it's because these things are being repeated to us over and over and over in a way that we can't escape them.
Yes. Very well examined, very well elaborated. We could talk about that for the rest of the interview, but I just have to get your take on, as always, I love your analysis on all kinds of different policy issues and cultural issues, but I also include, and I think a lot of people like this about you, there's a moral clarity that you have. And I saw it coming out yesterday, and I always love when I see you posting on social media about things like this. But I wanted to ask you specifically about your reaction to or feeling around when the President of the United States attacks female journalists the way he did yesterday, one calling her a piggy, which has resulted in some pretty amazing memes of him as a pig. But more importantly, or equally as importantly, when a journalist, the ABC News journalist, asked the actually perfect set of questions in such a way that anybody, I think, would be impressed or respect being asked by, in this case, the president sitting next to Mohammed bin Salman and everything that he is. And his reaction to both of them, my just quick point on it was we can never let anything get normal. Certain things are going to be normalized. We just can't keep track. But man, calling someone a terrible person, whether you're the principal of a school or like the head waiter or anyone, is bad. But calling a journalist a terrible person and a terrible journalist for what they are doing, it's done for a reason. We can understand it. But what is your reaction to the way specifically he does this to men too? Plenty of men. But it's a bit different, and it's always a different tinge. And we know about his history with women, and unfortunately we have to learn more about it every day. But what was your reaction to that, and how do we not allow that to become normal?
Well, let's deal with the Trump part of it immediately, which is that I don't need to tell you, even in comedy, we know the difference between punching up and punching down. Talking to men like this is not the same as talking to a woman who is already disadvantaged and probably making a lot less than every other male present. And we already know, there is a bottom with Donald Trump. The difference is every time he reaches it, he starts digging. So I'm not saying his behavior is acceptable. I'm saying it's expected and it's not a surprise to anyone. He is repellent and he is beyond the pale. The thing that bothered me, and you probably saw my rant on Blue Sky about this, is that every woman, at least in America, who has been working for any period of time recognizes the bullying that these women were unfairly targeted with. It's sexual harassment is what it is, that they received from Donald Trump and that other women and people of color have received from Donald Trump. We all recognize that. That's familiar. It's all happened to us. Every woman has been humiliated, torn down, dehumanized, sexualized during a public meeting or work event. But what we also recognized was the silence from their male colleagues. Especially if you're good at your job, especially if you're effective. Yes. We also recognize the silence of your male colleagues. That is so familiar to me, I can't even tell you. Yeah. These same men, and let me just be clear here, that if you are a male who has been working for any significant time and you are at least 35 or older, you have been present when a woman has been sexualized, dehumanized, torn down, humiliated, etc. That has happened with you present.
I saw Steve Bannon do it at Sirius. Just if we're going to name names, it's the easiest one. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I want you all to ask yourselves if you said something or not. This is not to shame you or call you a terrible person. This is just to say, did you step up? Because you probably didn't. And that has contributed to the place that we are right now. We need men to start speaking up. And I
don't want to lose my status and my place in line. I realize the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. I firmly believe that idea. And I heard that phrase first from an Australian general who was addressing the sexual harassment epidemic in his, like every other nation's, military. The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. I get it and I believe it.
Yeah.
But I also worked really hard to get here, and I'm not gonna stand up for that woman because it's gonna screw me over, and then I'm gonna lose my place in line and all.
So let me just bring some receipts here and allay people's fears. Number one, men are much more likely to be listened to and respected for pushing back on bad behavior. Also, they're more likely to be rewarded. Men who speak up on behalf of marginalized colleagues are more likely to get promoted and get pay raises in the future than those who do not. What's more is there's a big gap between what we think our colleagues believe is acceptable and what they're offended by. In other words, we will feel offended. Many of those men probably were offended and upset that he called her those names, but they are assuming other people are okay with it. But it turns out every time we study it, that's not true. You are underestimating the extent to which the other people in the room are also offended and upset, and they will see you as a leader for actually speaking up and saying what they want to say. That's not true for any other demographic except for white males. That's the only demographic for whom that is true. That's why it's so important that all of you out there who are white and male, especially if you're cisgendered, straight, you have this opportunity. You have this power. And rather than seeing it as like, oh, you're saying I have power, I don't feel like I have power, I wish you would embrace it. Like, you have this power I don't have. And I need you to use it.
I love it. I love it. Especially for someone like me who is like very straight and very white. And very, what was the other one? Male. I'm I'm very masculine. A lot of people say people come over and they're like, wow, you have a lot of tools. And
wow, you're so alpha. What do they say? A high value male? Isn't that what they?
Celeste, when you're alpha, nobody has to say it. Okay. I usually get cuck and beta, but I got alpha once in my own journal. I don't strive for it. I don't strive for it. I actually seek it out and then I attack it. I mean, it was what I would do on comedy stages, and it's also what I would do, I think, in different organizations I was with. I like to find the alpha and bring them down a notch because I'm big on punching up. I like it. I've always enjoyed it, and I think it's just how I've always been. But you are very, very eloquent as always in talking about that issue. But just going back to this situation, you're basically talking about these female journalists being attacked by the most powerful men in the world. What are you saying men, much less other women, and particularly, by the way, I think you might have posted about this, no Republican women. Did you see that woman on CNN, a Republican congresswoman, I think her name is Salazar? The shame that should be brought upon her and other women who not only, it's one thing to be silent, it's another thing to pile on and support, which is what she's doing, or looking the other way or making an excuse for. What should she or other women, and more importantly, what should the men do in that case?
There are women attacking the Epstein victims, these girls who were trafficked at age 14, and saying you should have done it the hard way rather than trying to get ahead by using your body. Are you effing kidding me? But yeah, you're absolutely right. And to be totally frank here, when I say that women are punished for pushing back, if that journalist were to speak up and say, hey, you can't speak to me that way, that's unacceptable, women are even more likely to then punish her and attack her than the men are.
Yeah.
So I'm not giving anybody a pass. The only reason I'm speaking to white males is because you have the power to change things.
Right.
It's not that you're the only ones doing this completely crappy stuff. But yes, you are right that everyone should be speaking up. But even more than that, her employer, these corporations, these networks need to be stepping up and saying that's unacceptable. You cannot speak to our employees that way. This is an incredibly well-regarded, accomplished journalist, and she's doing her job. And that is, frankly, every other male in the room should have said, it's unacceptable to speak to another journalist that way, and then asked her question again, and then continued to ask that question and ask no other questions except for hers. Or they should yield their time. They say, I'm going to let her speak instead. There's so many things that men can do, and whichever one you choose, whichever way you choose to push back, I am here for it, just as long as you actually choose to push back.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but just quickly going back. I mean, the reason why white straight men are most effective, unfortunately, is because not always, but often white straight men are the problem. And we tend to listen to our peers more than those that we don't necessarily identify with. I'm less likely to listen to a woman or person of color than I am to, sadly, about my views. I'm not, frankly. I find it embarrassing. I always find it embarrassing, like, if all the women in the room are in agreement about you and your behavior, and you're like, you're wrong. It's not, or all the people of color in the room or at your job are like, that guy's he's got it out for people of color. He's a bigot. He's a racist, whatever. And you're like, I'm not. Like, I hate to say read the room, because clearly you don't care about it, but it just seems like, unfortunately, people don't listen to them, and they will listen to their friends. I thought it was really this actually played out in my life. I might have told you about this, but simply after Charlie Kirk died, I'm in a chat with 19 white guys from high school, and one guy went off and took the hood off, and me and two other white guys, we're all the same, we're like, where do you think you are, man? Not in this room. Get a different text chat with your buddies where you can all take your hoods off together, but you can't take your hood off here and feel comfortable. And it was effective. It's the most effective thing you can do, is address the people that are like you, no matter what you're.
Oh, I could not agree more with you. And I should point out that Reuters just finished their investigation and found that over 600 people were fired for saying negative things about Charlie Kirk. But let's go back and talk about all of society's reaction to Donald Trump saying, I can grab them by the pussy and I get away with it.
He said that? And still got elected?
Yeah, so shocking, isn't it? But the fact that the majority of Americans walked right past that, past a presidential candidate describing sexual assault, that's how far back this is going. And that's when I needed every single male in America to say, I don't think so, dude. You're a monster. We don't sexually assault women, whether you can get away with it or not, friend of Epstein. This is why we are here. And I'm not saying that women didn't respond badly. They absolutely did. Megyn Kelly is an example. But women, as you're saying right now, we don't have the same clout. We don't. But I will also say, let me just say one more thing. which is, this is not, I'm not trying to come down on everybody, because frankly, right now is the wrong time to be coming down on anyone who's trying to make the world a better place. It is a tough time for everybody. And, for the first time, I just gave a symposium at the Museum of Science in Boston. And you know me, you've known me for years. I am always the one saying you can talk to anybody as long as they're not violent or attacking you, and you can talk through anything. But for the first time in my career, I gave a symposium in which I said, okay, let me explain to you how to talk to people in MAGA, but also let me explain when and how to shun them.
Oh, what's changed?
Because we're not using social sanctioning in the way that we should. In our species, social sanctioning is one of the most powerful punishments we have, because belonging is necessary for human health, because a community is necessary for our species' survival. When you shun someone, that is an existential threat. But we're not doing that. If you bring on an Olivia Nuzzi who was fired because she had an affair with one of her subjects, maybe more than one, but then you give her a book contract and invite her onto every talk show as though she's still an acceptable part of society, that is not social sanctioning. We are not using this powerful 300,000-year-old tactic that is at the core of how we reward and punish members of our society. And so that is what has changed. Is number one, we have to be very careful that when we decide to shun someone, it's because of their behavior, not their beliefs. But they can't be invited to the cookout. You can't just have them over for Thanksgiving as though they haven't done harm. I don't know if when you've talked about some of these things, the phrase moral injury has ever come up.
Well, I've talked about it as a result of with veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan is where I learned the phrase, and it was not a fun thing to learn about, and I don't want it.
Yeah. And that's where that came from. And the study of moral injury came from the military. As they started to try to understand what used to be known as shell shock, or try to understand PTSD, there's a level of moral injury that involves, it's a sin of commission, where you or somebody has done something they shouldn't have done. Omission, where someone has not done something they needed to do, but there's almost always an element of betrayal.
Moral injury, psychological harm resulting from perpetrating, failing to prevent, or witnessing acts that transgress one's deeply held moral beliefs. You actually explained it better than the definition I quickly found. But yeah.
But that's what the definition is. And it's a deep psychological scar. And what's happening right now is that moral injury is being perpetrated almost on a daily basis to a lot of people. The murders that are happening in the Caribbean,
I was thinking about that.
Moral injury. Watching children being either dragged away or their parents being dragged away in front of them, watching a kindergarten teacher being pulled out, that is moral injury. And so therefore, if someone is either through their actions, through their money, however, supporting those kind of acts, they should be shunned. It's time to stop talking to them.
It's time to stop talking.
And that's what's changed.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, talking to certain people gets you views. And more views, more money. So the more outrageous, the more views, the more money. And that's what the system feeds now. I guess it's always been the case. If it bleeds, it leads, local reporting and all of that. But I guess, that's covering crime in a certain way, and you can speak to that. But this is more about like saying and doing the most outrageous thing and then being platformed. I think one of the most interesting things about this kid, Nick Fuentes, who I'm kind of obsessed with, sorry, but I'm watching him pretty closely and have for a long time, and he doesn't seem to care that much about making money or being popular, because if he did, he would be a little bit more measured. He keeps getting deplatformed off of places that he could make a lot of money, and he finds his way back. And sure, he's concerned about popularity and money in the movement, but a lot of it is just the ideological based hate that we've seen over and over, and a weird messenger. But the point is, he doesn't seem to care, and so he's the least measured rhetorically, he's the most hate-filled and most popular, I would say, out there, if you were to put those categories out. And yet millions and millions of views. The president of the United States, like, basically looking the other way. I feel like that would be the most extreme example. That guy, we could give hundreds of others in commonplace conversation at work or on major platforms or stages, et cetera, I think is pretty clear. But that's a great point about moral injury and that the degradation of it.
Yeah. And, here's another thing. As anyone who's listening or watching tries to make this calculation now, like let's say that you have a relative or friend who voted for Donald Trump. Is that moral injury? Is that their behavior and not their beliefs, right? Does that deserve social sanctioning? Everyone's going to have to make that decision for themselves. I would say no. I think it has to be more active. Like if they've sent money to an organization that does this, if they are in some way or other supporting in a tangible way any of these actions, then yes. But here's the thing. We, as human beings, we are evolutionarily programmed to seek out attachment. Right? When we talk about attachment theory, most of the time they're talking about attachment between children and parents, right? But there's also attachment between people and objects. For example, people can become attached to the Confederate flag. This is something that is less well understood as opposed to the attachment between a parent and a child. But we can become attached to objects. A child can become attached to a stuffed elephant. We've all seen our dogs. Some dogs get attached to what they call their transitional object, right? Like their emotional support.
I was attached as a 16-year-old boy. I was attached to a soccer ball pillow that had a hole in it. But that's not. I know what you're saying. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah. But the reason
Celeste,
for these attachments...
I had sex with the soccer ball pillow. I just wanted to make sure you missed it, and then I felt like other people might not.
My mind doesn't immediately go there. I'm going to be honest with you, Pete. When I hear soccer ball with a hole in it, my mind does not immediately think shoving my penis in it. That's not where I went.
Well, that's where I was, and I was very attached to it, but now I've ruined the entire...
Literally, in some cases.
You did it. You took it further. First you were above it, and then you decided to join and lower yourself to me and...
That's right.
30% of my audience who is disgusted
for a joke
that
wasn't even very funny. Yeah, I know, for no reason.
But the attachment, but this is a really good point you're making that I've destroyed. I don't know if you can get back to it, but I can pick up.
Now, let me get back to it. Because the reason for this attachment is existential terror, meaning our fear of death. And that sometimes leads us to attach ourselves not just to people or objects, but to belief systems.
Yep.
And sometimes that's helpful. Right? Sometimes that makes you join an anti-poverty group. Sometimes it makes you join a BLM group, right? But sometimes it means you join the Proud Boys, right? And when someone grabs onto something as a defense against existential terror, this is what's important here. They will not let go until they feel safe. This is a really crucial point because attacking somebody who's attached to a particular ideology usually backfires. They will become more defensive in the face of the attacks. They will not let go until they feel safe. If they are attached to a belief system because it's helping to soothe their anxiety, we have to make it clear there is a safe harbor for them on the other side.
That's a really great point. Really great point, which is very harder to do than to say.
It is.
But, just one more thing about, you're talking about the way to decide how you're going to judge whether or not someone can be brought into the fold or given respect or any light that you might have. And, every person has an opportunity to offer kindness. And I start there. And maybe they voted for Trump. Maybe they supported him with their money. But, for me, and I think you're probably getting at this to a certain extent, it's not about the things that he has done as much, because I'll give people a pass and being ignorant. Maybe you didn't know, you're not paying that much attention, but there's no way you didn't know that he's a shitty person and he treats people awful and he talks to people and he the most vulnerable people. And that Congresswoman Salazar was asked by CNN's Jay Tapper about his comment about calling reporter Piggy.
Yeah.
And she said, I can separate the personality from the policy or his positions or something like that. And I vomited and punched a hole in my screen because character is everything. And if you can look past the guy's character and be like, I'm okay with the fact that he's a piece of shit and has sexually assaulted several women and all that and attacks every good moral person because of this or that policy. Like, what is that? I have no space for you. How do you not judge his character or anybody like him as bad and giving them any light or respect?
Yeah, I think she described him as being picturesque. He's a picturesque person, right? Gag me. So obviously I think Salazar should be shunned. She's doing actual harm to people. She's making my colleagues, female journalists especially, less safe.
Yes.
She's giving cover to those who want to do harm
to
women and particularly to female journalists. So I feel like that's a no-brainer. Obviously not invited to the cookout. But the thing about deciding whether to shun someone or not, it goes beyond even just deciding, are they committing acts or am I just do I want to shun them because of their beliefs, right? That's the first step. But the thing is, it's not effective if you don't tell them why you are shunning them. Say, Uncle Bob, you're not invited to Thanksgiving this year because you did A, B, and C. If you stop associating with those groups, if you stop doing that, you are more than welcome to come back. Those are the two crucial components. You have to explain to them very specifically what it is that's causing the social sanctioning, and you have to explain to them how they could come back into the fold. That's the only way that it is effective. You can't just ghost somebody.
In the chat, my friend Will writes, that's the core belief. They don't care about anything, they being, I guess, who we're talking about. They don't care about anything until it impacts themselves. They act like dumb children.
I mean, I think that is to a certain case true, but they're not dumb children. And we have so many examples of people who have had true transformations. You know, in my book, Speaking of Race, I cover just a few of them, just a few of the famous stories of people who have literally changed their entire points of view. But it never happened because somebody argued them down. That never happened.
Right. Let me ask you about a couple specific things that are happening. Speaking, I guess it all ties back together to get your analysis and reaction to one Marjorie Taylor Greene's turnaround. And, you know, it's very easy to see through her and see the cynicism and not trust her at all and not forgive her for anything that she said. But this, on the same note, another thing can be true in that what she has done and said and standing in front of the survivors mattered, and it broke the Republican hold in the House to a certain extent. And she and a couple of other Republican women are doing exactly what you said. I'm not sure if you're giving them any credit or respect or if you see it as naked political ambition. What do you make of her specifically and her turnaround and how we should see her?
So I don't obviously know her, and I frankly don't really care what any politician says because we all know that what they say makes very little difference. All I care about is what they do. So I can absolutely give credit to Marjorie Taylor Greene for actually, as you say, helping to change the conversation among conservatives on Epstein. Frankly, I give credit to Lauren Boebert for doing the same thing, right? Like, she had to sit into the Situation Room with people high in the military berating her and threatening her, and she stood firm in her view of the Epstein files. Absolutely, I give credit for that, right? But the things that I disagree with them on are still an open question. Marjorie Taylor Greene is still recommending that people interview Nick Fuentes. I've seen nothing yet that shows that Marjorie Taylor Greene is not a white supremacist. I'm open to that. I would be thrilled if this were a true Paul on the road to Damascus moment. Yeah. If this were a real change, absolutely. I'm here for it. And I'm ready to welcome her into the fold. As I've said again and again and again, you can't tell someone to leave the group they're in unless they can come and join yours. So I'm here for it, but I have to see real evidence of it, not just talk.
And not taking into consideration the idea or concept of intersectionality, and that like the fact that you're a woman and you can relate to being sexually harassed or attacked, good. That would be pretty weird if you didn't stand with other victims and survivors. But the fact that you can't then take that experience and look at other marginalized communities, race, in her case, certainly sexual orientation, the trans community, which is like
immigration status. Yep. All of it.
So, yeah, that's all really good points. Also, all right, so with this Epstein file, where does it go? I mean, that's my other open question here, because, I don't know, I think that we are in for a lot more shocks and reactions. Again, my view is often, different than others, a little bit more positive. There are 4 leaks to plug for Donald Trump in this case. The survivors, Ghislaine Maxwell, the Epstein estate, and the DOJ, which is the one he's got a pretty good hold on. But lots of DOJ employees were locked in a building, forced to remove his name from the files. These are hard holes to plug, and I firmly believe that no one has ever plugged that many holes in a political scandal. All right, I don't know. Now you're filthy. You're filthy.
We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. The subject matter is filthy. Okay, so a couple things here. I totally agree with you that, they always say it's always the cover-up, right? And the fact that Trump has been successful so far in keeping the lid on this is to be said, I guess, in his favor. I mean it's a little bit impressive.
We saw
but he hasn't kept the lid on it because look at how hard the lengths they have gone to bury this, to distract us, to do worse things to keep our eyes somewhere. And yet people have persistently kept going. The Epstein files released the files, and it's worked. Also, I think public opinion it's against him. And that's when those leaks start to occur, when it becomes acceptable, when it becomes acceptable to start leaking these things. Exactly so. Yeah. When you can make money selling your book as Deep Throat. Yes, I think the tide has turned already on this. I think it's going to be impossible for him to keep it under wraps. And I also think once that waterfall begins, I think there is so much filth here to uncover. It's going to be horrendous.
And as a result
what
of
comes
that,
to the fore.
Not only do politicians not want to cover for this dirtbag, but neither do judges. I think that matters too. If a judge was thinking, including the highest in the land, there could be a change there, which would all be unpredictable. Okay, before I let you go.
Yeah.
Democrats, the shutdown, Mamdani, what I've been saying, because you got to make things binary, because I want to win over hearts and minds and sell subscriptions, is on the right, on the left, we're debating affordability. All kinds of different ways, education, employment, and healthcare. On the right, they're debating whether or not the hood comes fully off. Do we go full Fuentes? And yet we're called...
Oh, it's off.
It is, but staying on the left, talking about Mamdani and his policies and the way that people talk about social democrats and their ideas is so absurd and so insulting to anybody who understands the history of this country and our economic policies or the current state of things in fucking Canada or Europe. And the idea that we would do some of those things where they live longer, happier lives doesn't seem extreme to me. What do you think of his election and the conversation Democrats are having about the way forward?
So I see a lot of actual hopefulness. Again, I have to say I'm not a Democrat. Yep. I am an independent. But I will say I see hopefulness in some of the younger Democrats that I see coming to the forward. I mean, people who, like the mayor of Baltimore and in other cities where we are seeing politicians actually following evidence-based policies. Saying, okay, I agree with you that crime is a problem in Baltimore. What's been proven to work? And lo and behold, when you do those things, when you create after-school programs, when you create a walkable city, when you help people get jobs, it takes care of that problem. Evidence-based policies, not emotion-based or belief-based, but evidence-based. Yep. So the more that we see this, and here, let me end on a hopeful note here. Gen Z right now is showing it to be a remarkable generation. And I know there's a lot of talk about, we're so worried about the young men. But
They're fucking lazy. They're distracted. They don't read. They have the attention span. They're superficial. They're apathetic. What are you talking about, is Gen Z?
Yeah, so they are the least racially resentful generation ever studied ever since we began. Racial resentment, for those who don't know, you and I have talked about this before, is what they use to measure the impact of racism in politics. It doesn't mean you're racist. It means you have underlying feelings of resentment that are racially based, right? Plenty of liberals are racially resentful, but a high level of racial resentment is the number one most powerful indicator of a vote for Donald Trump, for example. Gen Z is the least racially resentful of all time. They are the most embracing of LGBTQ communities. They are most likely to reject capitalism. So there's a lot of, whether that changes as they get older, and by the way, the idea that you become more conservative as you age automatically is not true. That's a myth.
Right.
So the idea that they will be coming into power, but also what I love is the fact that they are not standing for it. Like, they're on to you. They are among the ones who resent Chuck Schumer the most. If you take down Donald Trump with the Epstein files, you're also going to take down Bill Clinton, the Gen Z is like, take him. Right? And I'm not saying other generations aren't saying the same thing, but they are saying it en masse. And that's as true of the young men as it is of the young women. Young women are becoming more progressive, and the young men are right there with them. I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope for evidence-based politics. I think people are hungry for expertise and competence. And I think young people in particular, if nothing else, they have become savvy to the political tricks that sadly are still working on the older generations.
Yeah, I love that positive note. I tend to agree, but you're the one probably looking at data, whereas me and my friend Ronnie and others in the chat are saying, aren't groypers Gen Z too? And there are a lot of groypers. And I would add, yesterday I watched a video of a young white guy saying the most racist shit you can say ever. And I've seen lots of these videos, but it would seem that I've got a few anecdotes, and you might have some racial resentment data in polling or something.
So groypers are perhaps the loudest. They get a lot of attention, but it's out of proportion to the percentage of the population that they are a minority. I'm not saying they're not dangerous. I'm not saying they don't deserve attention. I'm just saying they are a minority. So again, that's not the majority of Gen Z. Some of those people aren't even Gen Z. Some of the groypers are millennials. Some of them are Gen X, frankly, and in their 40s and 50s. Yeah. So there is a certain portion of the population that has become more extreme. But, here's the thing, that when I've been studying history for the past 9 years, and particularly this type of history, political and especially related to gender and race, is that we're not seeing anything new right now. The only difference is that the people who were in the extremities of past generations and past decades are now in power. And those who have the ability to stop them are not doing so, which kind of brings us right back to where we were at the beginning. Those who are spectators need to stop standing by.
So well said. You're the greatest. So happy to see you today.
Well,
I speak on behalf of everybody who's listening and watching live, and that we are grateful to watch you live, as I mispronounced earlier, to have you, and always excited when we get to see you. Anything you want to plug that you're doing? We talked about the book. Obviously, all the links to all of Celeste stuff are in the show notes to her books and everything else. Anything else happening? You're going to be anywhere that we could see you, or doing anything that
So I will announce that I am actually taking a professorship starting in January. Yes, I will be a tenure track professor at Morgan State University, the third largest HBCU in the country, in the journalism and communications department. Yep.
In the communications department?
So journalism and communications.
Why would you do that? Why would you go that way? Why do you want to do that right now?
After 27 years of being a journalist, I would like to be able to express my opinion. I would like to be able to say what I think. I'd like to be able to participate in rallies and protests, and I haven't been able to do that almost my entire
So
professional
taking off
career.
your journalism hat and putting on your academic hat allows that?
Yes. A
Oh, that's
professor can tell
exciting.
you what they think of Donald Trump.
That's
a journalist
exciting.
is not supposed to.
Right. Oh, very exciting. When does it start? When
January.
Oh, wow. Your students will be so lucky to be in your class. What do you know what you're teaching? What specific, like what courses or?
So I get to teach two classes a semester, and I will most likely this first semester I'll be teaching some form of interviewing / podcasting and journalistic writing, which is something I've been teaching for a long, long time. So yeah, and railing against AI probably.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. It's about to blow up. I'm reading. Everybody's saying there's an AI bubble about to burst.
Yeah, it's about to crash. I'm part of that Anthropic settlement because all of the AI platforms stole all of my books, including my 2 short ebooks. And I saw that one of the executives said that if every author makes a claim, every author they've stolen from makes a claim, they will be bankrupt. And I'm like, don't threaten me with a good time.
Let's fucking go. I wish I wrote a book.
Yeah, let's effing go.
All right. My listeners / friends are such dicks to me. The last comment, and I mean, I engender it and I'm proud of it, but my friend Will, who's been hilarious this whole time, I haven't read him. He goes, maybe Pete can take your podcast class. Thanks, Will.
Maybe Pete can be a guest lecturer in my podcast
Hello?
class.
Welcome.
Hello.
It's time for my lecture. Can I have a cane with a gold top?
Give Pete respect.
Show me. Scott Bennett ends it with his comment, Celeste, you deserve great things. I'm happy to see them coming your way.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Celeste, for joining us. Thanks for watching live, everybody. Talk to you later.
Happy holidays, everyone.
There you go, Celeste Headlee. Huh? Isn't she great? Thanks to everybody who was watching live yesterday and contributed to the conversation. Always love that. And thank you very much for listening to today. Don't forget to go over to the show notes and check out the information on Troy and Christy Feltus and their family. How you can support them and that scholarship for their late son, Colin. Really important. Thinking of you, buddy. Thank you very much. He's a bumblebee, often listens all the way to the end. So I wanted to mention it one time, make sure you knew that we're thinking about you and your family, and we won't stop. All right. There you go. That's all I've got for you today. John Carroll singing us in, singing us out, singing us all about. Take it away, John.
Trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. You got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't in sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change would begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see them flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside. And listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up, people got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on.